Hello, everyone. My name is Parth Pithani. I'm your host for Robot Forward Warehousing podcast. And today I'm joined by Sandeep, all the way across from India. He's a good friend. He's one of the leaders in supply chain transformation in Indian landscape over with a global reach. And I was talking to him. I was like, we should do some conversations around how what he's seeing in the industry, the things that from a supply chain transformation perspective within Peninsula as well as global, and make a compare and contrast conversation around it. So I'm glad that he's spending some time with us. So Sandeep, why don't you just go ahead and give a quick intro about yourself?
Hey, sure. Thanks, Parth. It's a pleasure having a conversation with you. So, a very quick intro. I bring overall close to 15 plus years of experience, primarily in the areas of warehouse design, robotics, and automation. Quite fascinated with automation as a subject per se, and I have done quite a bit of projects in India, globally, for multiple organizations from retail to e-commerce to manufacturing and all. So it will be an interesting conversation path. Automation as a subject has been kind of a hot topic to discuss across, and it's going to be the next big thing, at least in the warehousing industry per se.
Oh, that's awesome. No, that's I see your resume and I was like, yeah, definitely a lot of experience in different verticals. So it's always good to understand and do the compare and contrast conversation. So let's go into the crux of it, right? So I wanna understand your take as you talk to clients, as you talk and as you read in the Indian supply chain transformation space or supply chain space. What are you seeing from a market perspective? What are the problems that, let's talk about Indian Peninsula? What are the problems companies are trying to solve, or what is the key point that you are seeing in that space?
So, see, Path, supply chain as a whole have evolved over the last couple of decades. If I can kind of go back and see a few decades back, it was more of a support function for any of the organization, and it was kind of treated that way. With e-commerce coming into picture, the supply chain has evolved, and it has evolved a lot. And omni-channel has kind of brought different aspects to it, and with e-commerce lots of focus has come to warehousing and transportation into, be it from the customer satisfaction perspective, be it from same day delivery perspective, managing multiple SKUs across the board to kind of dispatching the item within 1 hour of the order place, to quick commerce, which is kind of doing 15 hours delivery, right? So entire complexity has gone to the next level, and hence supply chain has kind of evolved a lot. Now it is a core function for any of the organization. All the organization treats supply chain as a core function. Warehousing, the way for manufacturing industry, the assembly line is the heart of the manufacturing industry. Warehousing for any e-commerce or retail in the current situations, it's kind of a heart is what I can say. Globally, maybe few, there are only few percentage wherein the real automation have been kind of tested. The landscape is huge for automation to scale up. But then last 4 5 years, I have seen a gradual kind of shift from manual operations to kind of at least getting into scan based operations, and then slowly and slowly there are lots of talks on automation. There's lots of people talking about it and kind of trying to understand it and use it. Hence, I see. So the problem in India used to be the cheap labor, the cost of labor, hence the ROI not coming to picture. But then of late, I have seen the leaders talking not on the ROI, but the scalability perspective. Automation bring the scalability, at least in the Indian and the subcontinent condition. In Europe, UK, and US, the ROI becomes critical, and ROI is pretty justifiable easily. But in India and subcontinent, it's difficult to justify with the cost of the labor. But then these days, the peak management, managing the peak of 10x, 4x, 6x, these becomes, and the availability of the labor to that tune becomes difficult. Hence, leaders are kind of looking into it, and kind of, even with a not so great ROI, or maybe ROI of 4 or 5 years, I see leaders are talking about it, and there is quite a bit of implementations uh, going around it. And In
Nice.
future, it's going to kind of scale up. The next 4 5 years in the warehouse automation in India is going to be kind of exciting. Lots of investments are done from all the 3PLs and automation organization, and I'm sure it's going to only scale up.
Nice. And thank you for that broad stroke. I think it was really interesting to see. And I wrote down a few points. I think one point I want to talk about is the ROI, right? And I think overall world thinks East Asia has cheap labor usually, and that includes India and China. And I always wonder, like, how does the ROI conversation goes into play when you have a comparatively cost effective labor, but at the same time you have to manage the peaks, or you have to manage the unavailability. So you made a good point that it's more of a peak management, and that's what the conversations are leading into the automation and robotics space. Is there anything else that you think that comes to mind when it comes to ROI conversation for automation within India?
So, one thing part, I mean, slowly, the shift for automation, not only in India but globally also, will change from the discussion of ROI to a sustainable and the right implementation of softwares and hardwares and how it is going to scale the business. That shift will happen, in my opinion. Having said that, uh, because automation at some point of time will be need of doing business. The way
Mm,
when we start any organization or companies, we do have offices, seats for the employees. Right? Automation will become a need to do it more than ROI and anything else. Having said that, when we talk about ROI perspective, apart from the speed and efficiency improvement, there is another angle to it, how it is going to impact your top line. Any customer satisfaction improvement is going to by some point will improve your top line and add to revenue, and it becomes
mm,
your unique selling proposition in the market. The speed to customer and the accuracy of delivery improve the CSAT, and hence it improves, kind of drives your top line. So not only the bottom line perspective while kind of defining the ROI should be seen, but also how it is going to impact the top line. And in your growth journey of the organization, let's say today you are at X kind of revenue, and in 5 years you have planned to become 4X. So you need some automation to kind of reach that scale. So it's just not the ROI and how automation will contribute to the 4X journey or 5X journey of an organization. That element also should get into the ROI from that
mm.
perspective. So these are some of the other thoughts. The only key statement over here, it's not just a bottom line thing, but it's a top line thing, and
Yeah.
leader should and all the consultants should look into that from that lens also.
You make such a solid point. It's just not about bottom line versus top, but it's more of a top line, and people in the ROI calculations, it's not usually covered. It's usually cost versus savings. Like, hey, I'm my 5x labor would be placed somewhere else, whereas I can give you this for $100,000 or $200,000. So it's just such a solid point, and I think we as an industry do tend to forget about that. And I think everyone in the industry needs to do a better job at it to figure out, like, how can we make conversation around top line and not just limit ourselves to the bottom line. um, I think I read a stat somewhere that and especially this is for 3PLs, that if you have automation, there is a 94% higher chances that the existing client, whoever you're serving for, will work with you for the longest time because you have automation that you're using for your order fulfillment. um well, that's definitely a
So
good color. So
yeah.
sorry, go ahead.
So yeah, just to add on to your point of the 3PL, for 3PL, it's a, I mean, differentiation point, right? Even for getting the deal offer for a new RFQ, this becomes a differentiation in the 3PL evaluation metrics itself. So
Hmm.
all the global 3PLs who are kind of one of the leading ones have got huge kind of investment as a budget for innovation and automation for existing clients, even for, I mean, future scale of the business. So that's the point. It's going to be the business as usual. Automation will become a business as usual for the likes for the 3PLs and all, and slowly brands will kind of recognize it. That that's where it is moving. It will move at
Mhm.
eventually. That's the journey.
So so automation is gonna be table stakes. I think that's the key
Yeah.
here. No, thank you for that. No, and thank you for entertaining that question. I think it was really interesting to see that the ROI conversation. So that also brings me like we talk about ROI, we talk about the problems that what the industry is facing, how industry should be thinking about it. Like when we think about automation and robotics, I think one thing that I personally see is like from an industry perspective, the education barriers are there. Not everyone has a budget to go out and learn stuff. Not everyone has budget to go. Even if they have budget and they go to, let's say, big events like Modex and ProMed, a Logimat in India or Europe, I think the challenge I personally see is that they go to these industry events, they learn so much, they drink from a fire hose, and they come back and they are lost, right? They don't know where to start, how to start. So my question is like from your experience across different industries, let's say if I'm a new to robotics and automation, like can you tell us where should we start and how should we start?
So yeah, Path, that's an interesting one.
It's a
Any
broad, right?
newcomers? Yeah, yeah, yeah. So and even I mean for robotics and automation to kind of get to the next levels and all, we need right skilled people within this community to kind of grow it, right? So from that perspective, if I kind of look back, so there's nothing as good as learning from doing the stuffs and all, right? That's the best way to start. Having said that, not much of a material is in a very organized way available in either in the I mean in you go Google also, not you will not get it in a very very organized manner per se. But we are kind of doing this podcast, right? And warehouse
Mhm.
robotics, in my opinion, is one of the best place to kind of have the updates on the automation. These podcasts
Yeah.
definitely should kind of give them directionally some stuffs, and then there are other materials available within the portal per se to kind of have a look into it.
Mhm.
But it's a niche thing, and I'm sure the people like you will be doing much work for the newcomers with all these podcasts and articles and news forums which you bring to the table for them to kind of so one of the ways, go to warehouse robotics site and have a look at it every week, follow it
Yeah.
and
No, I appreciate that. And thank you for writing. Not if the audience doesn't know, but Sandeep is one of the active contributors on the website. So please read his articles. He brings a very unique perspective in the industry from a robotics and automation perspective. So I think that's a solid point, right? You get to you if you want to start in robotics and automation, you got to put some time into it, put some learning into it. Any skills, any new tool that you have to learn, you have to put time into it. But to build up on that, what I also seen for a lot of these robotics companies is, and again, it's nothing wrong. It's just that because they understand that part is they are, let's say, very manual and they want to jump directly into automation without having that journey or the maturity curve going through it, right? There are steps to the automation. It's a maturity curve. You first go from manual to maybe some systems, some improved systems, and then now let's talk about the automation, because now you have a base which can support automation. And I keep preaching this because I feel like a lot of times they jump directly into automation without having the base, and then they say, hey, robots are not working for me, robots don't do a job.
yeah.
I feel like that's doing this service to all the robotics industry as well, and at the same time it's not good for the client as well, because now they have this sour taste, and they just will not use automation for the longest time, or robotics for the longest time. So I think it's in everyone's benefit that everyone goes through a maturity curve and make sure they have the base to actually ready to have the automation and robotics in their warehouse. What are your thoughts around that?
Yeah, but that's an interesting point you brought on the table. So see, so Dubai, it was. I mean, Dubai for that matter has seen only the desert, and the next thing was the Lamborghini and all those things coming
That
into
is true.
picture, right? The middle part they haven't seen, and hence they don't know the value of the middle path, right?
Mhm.
And similar for automation, as any organization, when they try to kind of get into evaluation of automation, it shouldn't be like 0 and 1, and they need to understand the maturity of the organization. And when I say organization, it shouldn't just be the warehouse operations or the warehouse maturity, but as an organization, how mature you are, how your tech team or the IT team is matured, how the stakeholders are matured. So that maturity on the kind of, because any transformation, be it any transformation, it's a painful journey, right? You need to kind of uncover lots of stuffs and then get into the the next level. And similar is automation journey per se. So the maturity of an organization from tech perspective, IT perspective, the people in the organization, how they are kind of, what are the mature, when I say maturity level, the acceptance to the robotics and automation and the required skill set. At the end of the day, any partner whosoever comes on the table, they will kind of design a wonderful solution, implement it, but the sustenance will be done by the team within the organization itself. And
Yep.
hence the people part of this entire change management becomes very very critical and crucial for the organization. Organization should be ready to kind of explain them, and have a upward journey curve for them also designed and defined. So right
Hmm.
now, maybe let's say I'm a warehouse manager. Once this particular automation comes, I get to the next level, and the next level may be kind of managing multiple warehouses from a centralized control tower, maybe that. But that
Hmm.
curve and the journey for each of an individual, to the, be it picker, be it packers, for each of the individuals, the next level journey has to be defined from the people perspective. From the organization perspective, it becomes very very critical at what is the maturity and at what stage of their growth path they are. Let's say if they are a startup
Yep.
and their vision is to kind of grow, then maybe 2 3 years they shouldn't do automation. Once they are,
Mm.
rightly matured and they feel now, I can invest and all. So it's a commitment for the next 5 10 years. It's just not for a trial and hit and trial, and you,
Correct.
if it is right you do it, if it is wrong you don't do it. It's a strategic decision, and automation for that matter has to be a strategic decision. It has to be built within the strategy of our organization growth. Maturity is important. The people part is very very critical for any successful automation, and the people who are within that organization should also grow with this growth journey. And those aspects
Yeah.
are critical for any leaders to kind of take a call on this.
You bring up a very interesting point, because that's something I always preach to my team is like, the go live is a milestone in an automation journey. It's not a end. A go live of any automation is just a milestone, because as you said, sustenance is such an important conversation or a story that people tend to forget as soon as they have a go live, successful go live. Yes, done, work done. But no, I think the real success come if you have a strong team who can maintain it. And I can tell you from my personal experience, I have managed maintenance team, and maintain and managing and being on a maintenance side, it's a hard job in terms of like, if you
Yep.
don't have the right strategies, if you don't have the right people, you can really fail and then pretty much become a bottleneck for the whole operation. So there is a lot of value and a lot of strategic decisions that needs to go in the maintenance conversation or the sustenance conversation as well. No, this has been a great insights. And I think as we look into the future and the automation space and the maturity curve, I think I do want to pick your brain on like, what has been the most challenging project that you might have worked in when it comes to automation and robotics setting.
So, all the
It could be
automation
anything. It
project
could
has
be.
been. uh, uh, there are two. One was from the perspective of, it was done first time for the organization, sortation automation for a leading e-com
Mhm.
company, and a cross belt sorter, and it was being done for the first time for the organization, and hence it was critical, important, and the throughput was roughly 24K sorts per hour as a requirement,
Mhm.
with roughly 200 plus destination shots. The volume
Mhm.
was huge in that matter, and
Mhm.
eventually the partner selection was not from India. It was a partner
Mhm.
outside India, and the implementation was to be done in India. They
Mhm.
that became a very very complex from the perspective of folks coming from outside, the language
Mm-hmm.
barriers, and then after
Mm-hmm.
post go live, as you rightly said, the maintenance and all. So those complexity was on the
Mm-hmm.
practical implementation side, but on the
Makes sense.
design and kind of solutioning, the complexity was to do with the volume. Other than
Mm-hmm.
being done for the first time for the organization, the volume in itself was
Mm-hmm.
humongous. And I mean, 24 page shot, so it's roughly, I mean,
Yeah.
more than a million per day, right?
Yeah.
So
But
that
yeah.
that makes it complex. And the integration with existing WMS, that
Mm-hmm.
was kind of slightly complex, being done for the first time. Lots
Mm-hmm.
of APIs here and there, and then being
Yeah.
a global firm, the APIs standardization. When we talk of the automation design, we at sometimes forget the software APIs, what are
Yes.
available, not available. That
Yeah.
may be a
Yeah.
critical. I mean, it at times come into the critical part of the entire implementation, and that was so
Yep.
right in this particular implementation which was there. So that's
Yeah.
one part, and the other one maybe was for a omni-channel environment, end-to-end automation design and implementation of for a leading apparel e-commerce company in India. Again, the volumes were huge. Other than volumes and SKU complexity, the
Mm-hmm.
omni-channel per se itself I mean, pretty complex. And hence, multiple type of storage design. I mean, from the automation had case shuttle to pallet shuttle to multi-tier I mean, the manual operations also, just to kind of cater to the volumes, and based on the SKU velocity and all, we keep some portions in the case shuttle, some as a replenishment in the multi-tier shelving. So the entire storage design kind of became very complex from that perspective, and it has all the flavors of from B2C to B2B to retail fulfillment. That
Wow.
was the kind of
Yeah.
complexity, and hence the design was kind of quite complex from the perspective from the. And also on top of that, it has a RFID based GRN done. So they implemented RFID at unit level, and the GRN was being done with the RFIDs tag scanning and auto GRN, and hence RFID become the integration with the RFID serial code, and all those became kind of critical
Yeah.
in the entire implementation per se. Yeah, that's these are couple of projects in my mind which I feel have been
No.
from design and implementation
Yeah.
perspectives
Yeah,
part.
I can see that I can completely see that why, because I think over, not just for the how huge the automation or robotics has been, but the one from the integration and the maintenance. And I keep the I honestly that's the message that I also try to do in my conversations. Like, yes, you have this, let's say, solution that you're looking for, pick a system Rs or G2P solutions. That's great, you found your solution, you now have to, you're excited about it, but let's make sure before you go to the next step, we have a conversation around integration, right? Let's make sure that your IT teams are pretty prepared for this, because usually operational leadership and the engineering leadership makes a decision around that, hey, we want these robots because the client will be a, it solves the problem, and b, client will be happy with it. That's great. But then it goes to the IT side. IT has its own priorities that they have to solve. You'd never know how, what is your project on the list, is it the first one or the last one? And those integration, like, hey, my WMS just provides message in JSON, or it doesn't provide in JSON, you have to massage the data and create a middle layer. So all those conversation, if it's sorted out initially, it's really great, because as an operational leader, now you do all this work, and then you go to this immovable object, which is IT at some points, right? Because there are so many other priorities, and you cannot move, and then becomes a sour taste in everyone's mouth. So it's always good to bring them along as you are thinking about the journey in the automation and robotics. Wow, that's those were definitely challenging projects. I can see that. um, so so on that note, right, those were the two important projects, that are those big projects that you feel like those are challenging. I'm sure there are other projects that you worked on. If you have to, like, think from a workforce development perspective, I know you touched a little bit on that during our initial conversation. As an operations manager, as an IT manager, as an engineering leader, how should I think about preparing my workforce for this shift? What are the things that you have seen being successful, or what are the things that you have seen being implemented as an automation and robotics come into picture?
Yeah, so Path, as I touched this point, people are the critical, I mean, aspect of any successful implementation project, and it all starts from involving them within the project from day zero. I mean, don't them make them kind of being just a listener or folks who are just taking kind of post decisions. They are being told that this is done, but involve them. That's important from the perspective of overall implementation. Other than that, it's very critical to make them understand their growth journey with automation. Folks, I mean, they understand how critical it is. They also understand it's kind of it it will help them upskill themselves also, and hence they, as an individual brand and value for himself or herself, their value also grows with it. So, and
Mhm.
also we need to kind of define and design various roles post automation implementation. What will the role change? What will be the kind of I mean, what are the different training requirements from, let's say, maintenance perspective? For example, just maintaining maintenance of the automation, there will be a maintenance team, full-time maintenance team required. Can a particular existing folk become a maintenance engineer for that matter? So that kind of upskilling and all those has to be thought through, and kind of the entire org structure redesign becomes critical, from defining the job roles to the what will the KPIs, KRS. So those change management has to happen, and they have to be brought within the entire implementation for any successful kind of implement. That's what, and of course, training is a critical part to it,
Yeah.
and training has to be there. And just to touch one of my existing implementation on I mean, end of line implementations and WMS, lots of emphasis on the training per se. That's And then hence they are also excited that they will be doing something new other than the manual operations which they have been doing for ages, right? So
Mm-hmm.
that's how you kind of bring them on board, and then give them a journey and a growth path. The only apprehension most of the folks will have, that will automation kind of take away my job with AI? I mean, Gen AI and all coming into picture, lots of job cutting and all those things. So that's a
Yeah.
apprehension, and that's a right apprehension and a fear to have. But the management and the leaders have to kind of ensure that how the transition will happen, how the folks kind of will be. It's a next level for them. We are giving them a
Mm-hmm.
next level, not
Yeah.
anything else. I mean, and it's going to help them also as an individual become a better brand for themselves, and better journey for themselves. So those are some
Yeah.
of the softer aspects, in my opinion, to be kind of considered.
No, I think, and you make a great point. And I think if we have to sum up our conversation, it feels like the automation and robotics are going to become table stakes, and change management is going to be there. So be prepared for change management.
For sure, for sure. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. This has been a great conversation. I think I enjoyed so much, Sandeep. So I appreciate your time. And as we go towards the closing, I do want to pick your brain on something which is very, which I feel like you are in a position that help us understand. Is like, from your, of course, your product management background, your consulting background, and just working for different companies. And as you look into the automation and robotic space, what do you think is going to be, and it's going to be a loaded question, what do you think it will significantly change the warehouse operations in next 5 to 10 years? Let's say 5 years.
Interesting. I mean, that's a tough one to kind of take it. But if I see, as I told, last couple of decades, warehousing as a operations has kind of evolved, right? There were days when
Mm-hmm.
they use, I mean, warehouse doesn't have to be mandatory to have WMS and all, right? So the journey has started, and people are moving towards WMS and have a scan based operations for that matter. Want to have inventory traceability and live dashboards and end to end control towers and those kind of things for the organization are looking forward to. And automation as a whole globally has also matured in I mean, last one decade or so. I mean, the likes of AMRs and AGVs have also kind of matured over a period of time. Uh, On the hardware side, I feel there's quite a lot of work which have been done. The areas which kind of as a new age comes is automation coupled with AI and ML, part of it, and how the predictive analytics and all can be kind of clubbed for robotics and automation to do some advanced stuffs and all. The other
Mhm.
piece which I, as a process, I feel unloading is something which is still evolving. There's lots of stuffs
Mhm.
going on, but there isn't a very proven solution per se, and it's kind of still getting evolved. So that, and it is a very uh, I mean critical process to be solved, and still
Yeah.
lots of work, I mean, with different units being handled and all, it's tough to solve it. But and also the peace speaking kind of thing, with the lots of vision stuffs coming into picture. There will be
Mhm.
lots of technology implementation over there, and again the software part has to evolve with all these vision sensors and all to ensure that
Mhm.
you do a picking of any kind of production also. So lots of experiments, lots of implementation are going on. In the storage section there's lots of work. I mean, there's
Mhm.
ASRS to multi shuttle to case shuttle to pallet
Yeah.
shuttle to, I mean, auto stores, exotech. We have the cube storage and all. There's lots of work and
Yeah.
lots of things have been done. On the other side, loading and unloading to kind of picking and piece picking, and we make a zero manual touch warehouse operations wherein someone is controlling it from a control tower. That's the
Yeah.
next thing, and I'm sure that's where we'll be able to hit. Other interesting thing which has happened is this humanoid robot which is kind of being
Mhm.
experimented. How much that's going to kind of though it's slightly a long thing, but I'm pretty sure we will be able to as a community will be able to solve that part also. And this humanoid robot, at currently it might seem that it's a complex stuff and a costly affair, but gradually it will have its own economies of scale, and that's going to be the
Yeah.
next big thing other than the AI ML. I also see drones coming into picture from let's and drones coupled with digital twin, one of your interesting topic part.
Yeah.
That's
It
going to
is.
be
It
the next
is.
big thing for sure, wherein you replicate the entire warehouse and have a digital twin and kind of do the operation. So lots of
Yeah.
stuffs going on. I feel in the next 5, 7, 10 years there will be lots of CXOs like CDOs, Chief Digital
Mhm.
Officer, to CIOs, not the Chief Information Officer, but the Chief Innovation Officer maybe,
Mhm.
CAO, Chief Automation Officer maybe,
We
and then
already
of course
started
this.
that.
Yeah, yeah. So
The X
it's
already has.
started,
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
but
No. Awesome. No.
yeah, it's going to grow, and those are some of the changes which going to be there, and
That's
vision is going
awesome.
to be the next big thing, coupled with all these stuff for sure.
Hmm. Vision, yes, that's a great point. No, Sandeep, really think you appreciate all the time that you spent with us. I think this conversation has been really insightful from just not from the Indian Peninsula, but just the overall industry and where the industry is going, the problems that the industry is facing, and as they go into the implementation life cycle, what they need to be prepared for. So I appreciate you spending time with us, and thank you for walking us through all the challenges and all the insights from your side. Any parting thoughts, Sandeep?
And the part, thanks a lot for the conversation. Robotics or automation, it's a great field, and I'm sure it's going to add value to the world at such. There's lots of stuff, not only in the warehousing, robotics for sure in medical industry, manufacturing industry. It's going, I mean, for the environmental, for that matter, where we as a human can't reach, robots can kind of reach
Mhm.
and do some great stuff, right? So
Yeah.
I'm sure it's a exciting journey for us as a, we are in an era where lots of things are happening from
Yeah.
technology perspective. It has its own challenges, but then
Of
it's a interesting stuff, right? I see lots
and
of
that's
things happening in the.
and that's where you and me come to solve those challenges once the product is developed, right? So we are looking forward to this.
That's for sure,
No,
Path. Yeah, yeah.
yeah.
But yeah,
Awesome.
nice
No,
talking to you. It has been great talking to you on the topic.
awesome. Same here, Sandeep, and thank you.
You have been listening to Robot Forward Warehousing Podcast with Parth Pithan. Stay connected with us by subscribing to show on your favorite podcast player. If you like what you heard, please rate us and help us reach more warehouse robotics practitioners. Thank you for listening. Until next time.